We are Tools in the Shed, powered by CarsGuide, ready to rip into car stuff that has caught our eye this week. I'm James, and with me are Matt.
Yeah, g'day.
Who's been thinking about the meaning of Japanese luxury.
Yeah, I have.
As well as fearless editor Mal, who's been looking at the spectacular beating heart of the world's next hypercar hero.
Thank you, James.
And we'll check in with our favourite South African, Canadian, American boy genius in Muskwatch. So stay with us. But first, Mal, it's Aston Martin. It's a particular Aston Martin, and there is something that causes the wheels to go around. So it's pretty spectacular. What's the news?
So the Valkyrie, which we've been hearing about for at least 2 years now, their hypercar, if there's anything beyond hypercar, they'd probably call it. Anyway, we now know some details about the engine, and it is going to produce 1,000 horsepower, or 746 kilowatts, at 10,500 RPM without turbos.
Now I want to correct you there.
Yeah.
11,100 was the figure I'd seen.
That's the red line, James.
It's rev ceiling.
Yes.
So the peak for power is 10,000 RPM.
Yep, 10.5, and the red line's
Yep.
11.1. So that's motorbike material right there.
Yeah.
But it's also going to make 740 newton meters of torque. However, at 7,000 RPM.
So it's all up there.
Yep.
Because as I understand it, part of the genesis of the Valkyrie was that Adrian Newey was so frustrated by the limitations of current Formula One regulations. The collaboration between Red Bull and Aston Martin, some of them got chatting. He said, why can't we build a car where there are no rules, And
that makes it great outlet.
Letting himself off the leash, as it were.
However, road cars are even more strictly policed.
That's true. And isn't that part of this engine, that it's A, naturally aspirated, B, obscenely powerful, but C, compliant with emissions regulations, particularly in Europe, which is extraordinary.
I'm not entirely clear how they've done that yet. Maybe there's some loophole through limited manufacture, but you'd think everyone else would do that too.
Yeah.
But the latest number I read is that they're going to make 150 of these.
Yep.
And the Valkyrie itself is going to be road going. It's only the Valkyrie AMR that is going to be track only.
Yeah.
Wowee.
Because I think part of the thinking, or at least I've read this, was to take a 3-cylinder engine and multiply it by 4, in the sense that that you can effectively have a 3-cylinder engine with about 250 horsepower, but then when you collect them all together, you can dial things up such that it groups and adds up to 1,000. But there could be let's build this 3-cylinder engine. Maybe it's in the high 200s.
Similar to what Merc AMG's done with the 2-litre 4 and the A45. It's actually half the 4-litre twin turbo.
Yeah. Or even
modular,
I mean,
you could say.
A few companies now are thinking about the perfect cylinder. Let's just make that perfect cylinder and then multiply it up according to what capacity we need. It'd be fascinating to see a 3-cylinder version of this. But the Valkyrie,
I'd love that.
I got to say, for what it's worth, when I first heard about the Valkyrie, I thought, that's valid. Let Adrian Newey off the chain. Fantastic. He'll produce something dramatic.
Yep.
And boy, has he ever. The most recent pics that you see of the car, the back of it looks like some kind of spacecraft.
Yeah.
It's way up off the ground. It looks more like a catamaran than a car.
It's yet another rethink of what a car can look like.
It's going to be incredible.
Hasn't Aston Martin come on in leaps and bounds since former Nissan boss Andy Palmer took the helm there? They're now back to being desirable, back to being
exciting,
imaginative.
Stuff's happening.
And once this thing lands, talk about a halo car.
Oh yeah,
you're right. The design has spiced up. It's not different iterations of the same look and feel. Aston Martin spread it a little bit around in terms of the design.
They've been bold with the evolution of the design of the regular road cars as well.
Yep.
There's more coming with that. The
Zagato?
No, what's the electric brand?
I don't know.
It was revealed at Geneva this year.
Oh,
Anyway,
okay. Not sure.
So the electric.
Our viewers and
luxury
listeners
brand,
will club us over the head with that. They'll know. Yep.
They're etching their place in the world, for sure.
Yeah.
But one fact that I really enjoyed from this week's information is that the crankshaft takes 6 months to manufacture.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to hear back in the 80s how long stuff carbon fibre used to take to form and create, but 6 months!
Yeah, and the good thing is the Valkyrie will probably accelerate from 0 to 100 in no time. It will just do it. There won't be any time because it'll be so fast. It's already there.
You've got to run up
before it's even started.
You've got to have another car to get on board.
But in terms of the bragging rights, fight where a few years ago you had that wonderful 3-way cage fight between the Ferrari, and a McLaren P1,
918.
and then the 918.
Yeah.
What a great matchup that was! And here comes the Valkyrie to kind of put them all in their place.
And then
we're yet to hear about the specs of the Curve-style hybrid system that's going to go on top of this 1,000 horsepower.
Yes.
Yeah, and then there's the Mercedes Project One.
Yep.
So there's,
which is totally different in that it's a V6 and it's taking all the Formula One tech and
1.6 litre.
packaging it into a sports car format.
It's great to see innovation at the very, 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 very high end.
It is, and it's just fun because it's for other people.
Yeah.
That might be in the Middle East, that might be in Russia, that can actually afford to own and run these cars. But it's just fun to be an innocent bystander.
And how
watch
far
it
have we
all
come
unfold.
since not that long ago, where the top spec Lambo had an ancient V12 in it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
as the top spec model.
but it gives you a little bit of heart that this Valkyrie engine, built by Cosworth, by the way, is naturally aspirated. That so much is turbo. It's going to be a hybrid, but a naturally aspirated V12 hybrid. That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
Definitely.
But
Very
look,
excited.
talking about extraordinary vehicles, it's time for a word from our sponsor.
Life's a journey, and for over a century, Winton's been helping Australians enjoy the ride. Behind the wheel of a Winton, you're comfortably in control of the most efficient, enjoyable, and brilliantly engineered car in the world. In fact, from class-leading luxury and performance cars to light trucks, heavy haulers, and agricultural equipment, all supported by our no-haggle lifetime warranty and industry-leading service, Winton covers all the bases. Winton, Australian with a world of difference.
Okay, the new Formula E season kicks off this weekend in Saudi Arabia, and Winton is on board, and the development team has exploited every loophole in the Gen 2 regulations. The Winton Shocker is powered by an electric motor from the beer fridge in Frosty's office, and attack mode is brutal, even lethal. And the Halo device has to be seen to be believed. People watching on YouTube, you'll see a picture of the Shocker. It's quite a car. Forget Audi, BMW, Nissan, Jag, Porsche. Frosty says they're all losers and set for major embarrassment as the season unfolds. So I, for one, am thrilled to see Winton involved in Formula E.
Shocking in name, shocking in name.
The Shocker.
Yeah. I haven't seen the pic everyone's looking at, but I'm visualising Mad
You
Max.
can just see Frosty in the car. It's during testing.
Okay.
It's fabulous. So, yeah, keep an eye out for it.
Terrific.
Now, Matt, the question du jour, and it's one we were discussing in the office earlier in the week, was Lexus, because you've recently been in a particular Lexus, and it just opened up the broader topic of where that brand has been and where it's going.
Yeah. So this week I spent a little bit of time in the IS300, which used to be called the IS200T, but they changed name just cause.
Because they don't like the T.
Yeah, apparently not.
Or the 200.
So it's the turbocharged 2-litre engine. So 200T made a lot of sense. 300, you might think 3-litre, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got to thinking, what's it supposed to be? Like,
Yeah.
and I think that about the Lexus range. You know, there's a few models in there where I go, I don't really know what this is supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's not being, I'm not saying that they don't have a place in the market and there aren't buyers for those cars, but I don't know whether the IS300, for example, does enough of a job of being cushy and luxury or enough of a job of being performance and speedy and enjoyable to compete generally in that segment. Because, for instance, it's a 2-litre turbo with 180 kilowatts and 350 newton meters. So good outputs.
Yep.
But it's teamed to a gearbox that's very much efficiency focused, constantly changing up to save fuel. So you're constantly pressing harder on the throttle and not really enjoying the experience as much as you could.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do efficiency well enough to justify that.
It's really kind of symptomatic, I suspect, of Lexus still sorting out, and we're talking, they've been around for 89, 99, 2009, 2019, nearly 30 years. it's symptomatic of still sorting out what actually is Lexus. Because to me, it says a couple of years ago, Akio Toyoda, head of the whole place, asked exactly the same question. More or less walked in the room, said, "Okay, Lexus, tell me all about yourself. What are you up to? What have you been doing? Why do you exist?" And they've gone, "Well, we were created to make a luxury car that was going to out Merc and out BMW and be amazing quality and sell well in America. And we did that. Isn't that great?" He goes, "Yeah. And what are you now?" And they look back at him and just go, "Well, I don't know. We did that, and then we've just been doing other cars ever since." And he said, "Well, what's going to make you different?" And they came up with design. So it's going to be a distinctive design that sets us apart, and people are going to be attracted to our cars because of the way they look and feel. And I don't know whether that's panned. I don't know whether that's
there's
panned
distinctive
out for them.
design, and then there's appealing design.
Because that brings you spindle grille, this distinctive feature that all Lexuses now seem to follow.
Yes.
But you do have such a diverse model range, seemingly without any unifying theme. You know, you
aside
have
from the grille.
You've had the LFA, which was a fabulous supercar with what's commonly referred to as the best road-going engine ever. Funny, we were just talking about the Valkyrie, but, you know, amazing engine. Down to was it IS, the hybrid, like the Prius?
CT200H.
CT200H.
CT, yeah.
Prius sort of, but Lexus fired.
Yep.
And then you've got luxury SUVs, you've got the LS, and you've got the LX.
Yeah.
That's the big one,
So
isn't it?
LX is the big SUV.
The
LS
Land
is the big
Cruiser
sedan.
that is just big and kind of
Old.
So you kind of makes you think, what role does Lexus play in the bigger automotive ecosystem? You know, where does it sit?
I think it's a demonstration that it takes a long time to build a brand that people aspire to own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
Genesis and Infinity are, you know, in the earlier stages.
Because without now, for some time, Toyota, for example, has not had the car that appeals to an older, pretty cashed up, conservative buyer, which used to be filled by things like a Cressida or, you know, days gone past, a Crown or some kind of primo Toyota. So in a way, Lexus, yes, it's competing with the big players in the upper luxury segment, but it's also playing a companion role for Toyota.
Yep.
So some of the midweight models in the Lexus range more or less fill the kind of old Orion now becomes a Camry V6. There's that, but there's also, I could get into a mid-range Lexus.
Yeah.
So when you get in the car, it feels very Japanese luxury. It feels Toyota but premium. It's not to everybody's taste, but maybe there's a bit of that in there as well.
I feel the bean counters have kicked in earlier than they should have, in that, you know, the IS lacks a lot of the advanced construction technology that you get in a C-Class or a 3 Series or an A4. It's a pretty heavy car. So all this calibration of the 2-litre engine is trying to sort of counteract that weight that it's, you know.
Yes.
Whereas someone like Mercedes has the best transmission, the best engine,
Sure.
the best body, and the new 3 Series sounds pretty special as well. But all at once to justify that price and to justify that heritage of C-Class and 3 Series.
Which feels like, if, as you say, Matt, there's a really terrific, enthusiastic engine that's backed up by a transmission that's been built with a different purpose in mind, it causes you to think, well, who's in charge, right? Who's steering the ship? Are we building luxury performance cars? Are we building economical, efficient cars? Are we building cars that are great by design, that are going to appeal to people? Where, you know, is it the bean counters that are running the show? Is it the engineers, the marketers?
For me, I think any Lexus that's good in my head is a Lexus that's got either a V6 engine or a V8 engine. They're the two ones that stand out most for me, like an RCF, for example, or an IS350 with the V6 engine, for example. They're both much more enjoyable and involving cars to drive because they've got better drivetrains. These other drivetrains, I mean, putting hybrid aside for a second, the hybrid systems are good and efficient and proven, but, you know, they're not enjoyable. And then there's the 2-litre turbo, which, you know, I think a lot of us expected when Lexus finally did this 2-litre turbo that it had been talking about for years and applied it across a range of different models, including the IS and the NX and the RX, that it would be...
And the GS.
And maybe it would be a bit better than it was. But it's been a bit I don't know, a bit of a dud for
And
me.
also, do you feel that there are certain cars in segments that are there just because Lexus feels they should be there, rather than they've come from some really enthusiastic and energetic place that says we're going to build a great car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimately the CT's been up against the arrival of the A class.
Yeah.
The 1 Series, 2 generations of 1 Series.
Yeah.
And if there was a car
Tough to compete.
that would suit a 2-litre turbo engine, a CT could be a really good candidate.
Yeah.
But now we've got the new UX compact SUV, which is just arriving in Australia.
Seems like the right car for right now.
Yeah.
Brand new platform.
Yep. New engines, no 2-litre turbo. Don't know about that, but just it's a weird one. I think Lexus, is design enough? Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. Is it enough to actually give you that everybody's heading in the same direction, this is what we're driving for kind of thinking?
Yeah.
Because it seems a bit sporadic and that there are seemingly things working at odds here and there.
Yeah. But then again, I can't wait to drive the UX because I expect it to be pretty good.
Great.
So.
It's arriving very shortly.
Well, it would be great to hear from our listeners and viewers and see what they make of Lexus and just join in that conversation because
and try and think beyond. Is it a decent alternative to a Mercedes or BMW or Audi? Is it a decent brand?
Yes. Is it in that world, or is it also serving the purpose of somewhere for people who want a premium Japanese luxury car, i.e. Toyota buyers, offering them somewhere to go as well?
And then you've got the emergence of Mazda as a semi-premium or premium offering in some instances. I mean, some of the Mazdas that you can buy these days are in the $70,000 range.
Yeah, definitely.
With real wood and Napa leather.
Yes.
Yeah. Straight from the Napa Valley. They've got cows grazing in with all the grapes.
I thought it was goat leather, but that's
goat
okay.
leather.
Yeah.
Well, look, sports luxury, we are about to blow a gasket on this one because Mal, you've unearthed it's on Instagram, yes?
So it's not necessarily our gasket to blow.
Yeah, right.
But I've identified... Oh, it kind of is, actually.
Okay. Well, number 4
I've identified what I consider to be a rather controversial opinion.
Okay.
Which has been projected by the illustrious Stephen Corby, our contributor.
Yep.
Now, last night, I think it was, he posted a photo of the new Z4, which was on show at the LA Motor Show.
That's a BMW sports car roadster.
Indeed.
And the LA Motor Show was only a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, if you don't know what a Z4 is, people might not know what a Z4 is because there's not many of them.
Good point. Corby's a bit slow on the Instagram too, but he's getting there.
Wow.
Whoa.
Well, he's only posted it yesterday. Instagram.
Sorry, Corby.
Instagram. Anyway. Instagram. He's posted a photo of the Z4 and said, "Is it just me, or does this thing look surprisingly awesome and much better than any Z4 afore it?"
Right.
Now, I thought I'd jump on this.
Go for it.
I said,
Wait for it.
"It's you. Time to eat more carrots." But then Peter Anderson, another illustrious contributor, has jumped in for an argument, as he doesn't mind doing.
He's want to jump in for an
he
argument.
said, "Stephen is correct." And Stephen said, "I knew it."
Yes.
And I said, "Bet you love the 2nd and 3rd gen SLKs too." That's Mercedes, everybody.
Yes.
And the Sengon Chiron.
But it's a classic case of just subjectivity, isn't it?
It is.
These cars are always going to strike different people different ways.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Steve loves it. You don't.
It sounds like James
Peter
is
loves it.
going to sit on the fence on this one.
No, totally not going to sit on the fence. I think it's, been hit with the ugly stick pretty strongly in the front.
See, this is it's great because
This is why I brought it into this room.
I think it's actually a pretty attractive car.
Do you?
Because to me it's like a shrunken version of the new 8 Series.
Yeah.
In terms of its aggression, and it doesn't do that thing that BMW's been doing with the grille in recent times where it goes, hey, that space between the headlights, we need to make that massive and have this huge grille.
Well, it's
kind of huge. It's a little bit flatter.
It's flatter and smaller and more streamlined.
Well, the X cars, the bigger you go in their X cars, the X7 grille is like someone's been playing with Photoshop, but actually it's real.
It's the
Those
size
kidneys
of
would be really good for processing kidney duties.
Yes, the kidney grille. It's massive. There's some kind of illness there that's causing these kidneys to just expand.
So, so Matt, you think the shrunken 8 Series thing is effective? That's what I see as being wrong with it. Like, I think the old SLKs suffered from let's whack, Vision SLR, McLaren SLR and SL themes into this much smaller body, build as many design details into it as possible, but it's thrown the proportions out of whack. Whereas I think you need a bit more restraint with a smaller convertible.
I think it's one of those ones where I'm probably the last person to ever decry the arrival of a new sports-focused car.
No,
I think that's
definitely.
fabulous. And I can certainly see how people might really warm to it and love it. It's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
That's all. That's the way it goes.
Can I add to it? I'm extraordinarily grateful for its existence because it's bringing us the Supra.
Yeah, well, that too. Absolutely. It's
Without it, there'd be no
co-production.
Supra.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about the look of the Supra.
Hey.
Well, we've only seen a little narrow view of it in the back of a truck this week.
Yes, but it's got a bit of a proboscis monkey sort of.
I don't know. I don't know
on.
because you can't see it. It's only
Yeah.
been in camo, so it's just invisible.
Yeah.
You can't even.
Who knows?
Who knows what it
Oh,
looks like?
Could look like-
secrets.
It's these set of
like
wheels
the
just
Plymouth
moving around.
Fury.
You can't see the body.
Or a Peterbilt truck.
Yep.
Who knows?
Absolutely right.
Or any number of...
It doesn't look like a
Please.
Peterbilt truck. That's a promise.
It's got a nose almost as big as a Peterbilt truck.
It
Anyway.
does, but
All right, so that's fantastic. Now, speaking
Gasket
of
blown.
cars that are worth driving, just over the other side of the shed, we've got our parking area.
Did you turn the lights out?
No, they're on one of those automatic
Sensor. Okay,
sensor
good.
things.
Got to save energy.
Which is a bit spooky,
Eco-friendly.
but yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's all right. We've got to save energy. So, speaking of saving energy, Matt, you've been in something that uses up a heck of a lot of natural resources to actually create it, let
Yes.
alone the running of it. Tell
Yeah.
us all about it.
So I've been in the Volkswagen Crafter. It's a very, very large van. The version we've got is the long wheelbase, which comes with a high roof, and it is massive.
The wheelbase goes from one postcode to another, even when you're in the middle, the town centre. It's enormous.
You could fit a Volkswagen Passat in between the wheels, pretty much.
Yeah.
And
it's
play
huge.
basketball inside it.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the sound of
Yeah.
things.
I can, I'm 6 foot tall. I can stand up with room above my head quite comfortably, and I could lay down probably 3 of me in the back of it. It is massive.
So nose, head to toe,
Yeah.
3 of you
Yeah.
along the load space.
Yes.
Wow.
It is huge.
Are you moving any giraffes?
Not moving giraffes, but
It'd
there
have
is
to
a
be sedated, though.
there is a company
sounds like
called.
possibly
I mean,
not.
there's headroom and then there's headroom.
I'm no giraffe specialist,
You know,
James.
there's a company called Giraffe Removals, and I've always
No.
wondered
If
did they
moved
They
remove
actually
giraffes.
remove
Is that
giraffes.
Maybe that's
job?
where they got their start.
Because
and realised,
That's
people
not a
move home,
volume
not
business.
giraffes.
But when you're called in to move a
limited.
giraffe,
Oh yeah.
so one
bucks.
job could
It's-
carry you on for a couple of years.
It's like the old piano tax.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Anyway, so the reason I am getting a Volkswagen van is because I am moving. But
Giraffes. You're
it's-
moving house. That's
I'm
right.
moving house.
Yeah.
So it fell in that we needed some content on this car, and it's one that I haven't driven yet, and I love to drive all the commercial vans. I've also got a Sprinter at the same time, and as you may know,
That being the Mercedes for those
that's
watching
right,
at home.
Mercedes
Okay.
Sprinter.
Yeah.
You may know that Mercedes Sprinter and Volkswagen Crafter used to be a coalition vehicle,
Yeah.
but not anymore.
Is the Sprinter of the same scale as a Crafter? Like
Yes.
it's a big box like that is?
Big vehicle.
Same category.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but
it used to be like Ranger and BT50, where same
yeah.
underneath the skin,
So you can
different
get
styling.
you can get a Sprinter in rear wheel drive and front wheel drive, and there'll be all wheel drive as well. At the moment, you can only get a front wheel drive Crafter, but you can get them as vans.
Your giant long wheelbase high roof Crafter is front wheel drive.
Yep.
But there's something, if you're using it as a work vehicle, let's face it, that's its purpose.
Yep.
There's something very satisfying about being able to stand upright easily in the back and have your shelving and space for all of that, or racks or whatever it is you
Yep.
use, and just have tons of space. Payoff there is, or the balance is, that you've got to navigate with an enormous vehicle.
Exactly.
But it is very
And avoid
practical in that
low
regard.
hanging bridges.
Yeah.
got
yeah.
trees.
I did have to think about how tall I was when I was driving it yesterday. I didn't want to go through an underpass that might rip.
You just
the
told us
can
you're
off
6 feet tall.
Yeah. No, how tall the vehicle was, I should say.
Because you didn't want to break the internet.
That's right.
Anyway,
With the
that's enough
viral-
about the Crafter.
That's good.
Mal,
Mal,
A couple of weeks ago
you're being
now,
charged up.
but I missed last week's podcast. I drove the Jaguar I-Pace at its Australian launch.
Which will be a competitor for the production version of the Shocker once Winton gets
So
its
I've got
act
an
together.
inside word.
Yeah.
So Frosty and I are exchanging notes
Cool.
as we speak. Now, I've driven
Yep.
the I-Pace, which is the first electric-only premium branded product to hit conventional premium, which sounds like a lot of qualifiers, but in a nutshell, they've beaten Mercedes, they've beaten Porsche, they've technically beaten BMW, even though they had the pure EV i3 in 2014. But this is
were they aced by
first
Audi?
of many more cars.
Did Audi get in front of them?
e-tron as well, sorry.
E-tron, yeah.
No, they've beaten Audi to the Australian market.
Yep.
And it's kind of fresh thinking from a company that is, in the past, has been traditionally a bit traditional in its styling and modes of propulsion. Pure electric, same electric motor on the front and rear axles. It starts at $119,000, which is reasonable.
Now, what's its real world range?
470.
470. That's
on the
pretty good.
WTLP.
Wow.
Which is the new measurement standard and a bit more real world than what we've had before.
Yeah. That's a lot of Ks.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, yeah?
Yeah.
But is it like you drove the Ioniq, the Hyundai Ioniq, which has 230 real world?
Was that WTLP, the Ioniq rating?
This was a real world test that had been conducted actually in Australia. So it was to give a figure that we went out, I think it was 9 cycles of the battery.
Okay, so it's
and
Hyundai's
over
own testing
thousands
process.
of Ks, locally.
Okay, so we can't necessarily compare the two.
No.
Okay, but theoretically, let's say it's $120,000 starting price for an I-Pace and $45,000 for
the electric.
Ioniq.
Yeah, something like that.
So, I mean,
bring it.
You've got to be pretty convinced by the I-Pace to want to spend that much money on that sort of car, right?
Yeah,
of course.
For people not
it's
watching
the classic
on YouTube,
Hyundai versus
Mel just
premium
went all
product.
Beyonce. Sorry.
I went all.
You went all Beyonce there,
again.
Man. Yeah.
Sorry.
Did
First time this podcast.
You go, girl.
Thanks, sister. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I think early adopters are willing to spend more money. I don't know that.
I think this world is full of all sorts of different types of early adopters.
And there's all sorts of customers, and there's all sorts of cars for different customers.
We are the world.
It is expensive, though.
Yeah.
I don't care if you think it's affordable or it's reasonable.
Relatively, I see.
$120,000.
Yeah, and you miss out on a few
car.
things like adaptive cruise control, blind spot
What?
assist. Yeah.
Okay.
You miss out on that?
Yeah.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
I can feel the heat in the
Mark my
room.
word, you've got to
listeners.
get an SE for that.
Matt started clenching his fists.
Anyway, real
Under
world.
the table.
I'll be driving it on the highway for an extended period of time in the coming weeks.
Fabulous.
So
More to come
take
on
that
that.
WTLP. I'm going to give it a red hot crack.
All right, so tell us, podcast listeners, what do you reckon? What'd you say? 100, how much?
$120,000.
$120,000.
Starting
119,
price.
yeah.
Right, okay. Well,
List.
let's hear. Let's hear what people make of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
before on roads.
Yeah.
James, have you been driving anything interesting?
I have. I've been driving something interesting because it's at the same time familiar, but and also new, in that it's a CX-5 Mazda with the new turbocharged 2.5 litre 4-cylinder engine. So I, for one, have taken my hat off to Mazda for its Skyactiv, milking the last pieces of efficiency that it can get out of a naturally aspirated engine. And now they've moved to a turbo engine, and what that says to me is it's going to be a very good turbo because they've already got a basis that's efficient from which to work. And the thing that you realise in driving this car, and it's the top spec Akira, it's an all-wheel drive. I think you're getting up into the high 40s for this car. So it's not cheap, but the engine is great. It's made a really big difference to the day-to-day urban type driving that people will typically be doing in this car. So
Which is what it was intended to do.
Yeah.
That's what they did when they put it in CX-9.
Yep. So it's had the desired effect as far as I can see.
Yep.
You just ease it away from rest and ease into the throttle, and it just takes off. There's no effort. It's really smooth.
Which is
does it nicely.
that's very different to what you get in a 2-litre or a 2.5-litre non-turbo
Turbo,
CX-5 because there is a bit of a strained feeling and a bit of a whiny sort of
It totally shovels some
you need
torque
revs.
into that hole
Yeah.
and fills it beautifully.
I
It's
reckon
great.
it's just like what we all grew up loving about straight 6 Falcons and V6 Commodores and even even before that the straight 6 Holdens.
You're speaking for all of us here, Mel.
Well, Australia
you've
collectively.
just got on the front foot.
Straight 6 Mercedes as well, James.
You liked. Anyway, sorry.
Well, collective, it's fair to say Australia liked talky engines.
True.
When we made cars.
That lazy response
Yeah.
off the line. That's absolutely right. And that's what this car feels like. So I take your point. It just smoothly goes wherever you want it to. No strain, no stress. The thing I have noticed, maybe it's just this spec, and my wife is the canary in the coal mine for this kind of stuff. The ride is pretty firm, and the damping feels inappropriate for Australian roads. It was quite jittery, that secondary kind of characteristic. You're feeling that.
They've tweaked it and tweaked it and tweaked it.
And they tweaked it again for this update.
Yeah. So look,
but it's still got the biggest wheels, isn't it?
So it's on big rims, but it was just my experience this time around is that's how the car feels, I've got to say.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So great engine, but it just would get on your nerves, I reckon.
Maybe it's the short wheelbase and the high body.
Could be.
And lack of
CX-5.
adaptive dampers.
It just feels a bit bouncy. Yeah, it does.
Shame.
Oh, well.
All right. Well,
Stick it
that multinational guru that we mentioned earlier, it's time to catch up with what he's been doing in Muskwatch. Right, so the big news is 60 Minutes last weekend.
James's favourite show.
Elon made an appearance. Now, this is US 60 Minutes.
Okay.
And
serious one.
During it, he was keen to point out that contrary to popular opinion, he is not a puppet being kind of, on the end of the strings from the new chair, Robin Denholm, who is an Australian person.
Aussie Robin.
Going over there to be chairman of Telstra. But the 60 Minutes presenter, Leslie Stahl, I'm not familiar with Leslie's work, it is a woman rather man for those who care about that kind of stuff, asked Elon if somebody at the company was reviewing his Twitter messages before they went out because it was a requirement of his and Tesla's settlement with the SEC in the US that happened.
Yep.
Musk said, look, the only tweets that would have to be reviewed would be if a tweet had a probability, of causing a movement in the stock. Otherwise, it's, hello, First Amendment, freedom of speech is fundamental. So he was up there on his soapbox. To which she said, but how do they know if it's going to move the market if they're not reading all of them before you send them?
Yeah.
And he said, I guess we might make some mistakes. Who knows? And she just laughed. Are you serious?
Yeah.
So that's what's happening. No one's checking most of the Twitters.
Wow.
Musk then got much more serious
good news for
and
us.
said, I want to be clear, I do not respect the SEC. I do not respect them.
Wow. He doesn't
Brazen.
mince words.
He doesn't mince words.
But that's... I think that anything he tweets,
Could move.
the
Absolutely.
stock price.
Yeah, if this week he did 6 tweets versus last week he did two. That alone.
So on
Yeah.
the basis of that little exchange, it would appear that all of his tweets are not being vetted, that he still has access to the phone and he's getting on there and speaking his mind, as you say, Matt.
Yeah.
Very much calls a spade a shovel. And, we'll see what transpires. But according to the Financial Post, quote, Elon Musk is getting the last laugh on Wall Street after Tesla's wild 2018. And what they're saying is the Tesla stock is now back near the highs it reached on the day of the infamous funding secured tweet about taking the company private that caused such a furious rally before actually sending it downward, and he got into trouble with the SEC, etc. And Wall Street is actually, according to the Financial Post, bullish, expecting Tesla to be profitable in the fourth quarter. So that'll be 2 quarters of profitable operation. And it would show the company's figured out how to produce cars at a stable pace and make money while doing it. So
what is that pace, James? That stable
it's a great,
pace?
great point, Matt.
Is it
Thank
still
you for
well
asking.
below what it's supposed to be?
So look, the Bloomberg
Have we got
Model
our
3
Christmas
production
present
tracker,
yet?
which has been our yardstick, consistent yardstick, through all of the last 12 months, it's at 4,306, down 83 on last week, 16th week in a row under 5,000. But does that say that, look, 4,000 might be enough? 4,000 to 4,500, that's enough to give them and they're selling Model S's and X's and the trucks coming and all that stuff. That might be the number. He may have just been guilty of overstating it and overpromising, but the business is benefiting from a relatively stable production number on its mass volume car.
4,000 a week is still pretty low
Well,
for a mass market model aimed at international markets, not just North America.
Yeah.
But, I think deliveries are obviously struggling to get out there to people in other markets.
Yeah. Time, as always, time will tell. But you'd have to say that between Christmas time 2017 and Christmas 2018, there was like a washing machine vortex-style mess that now is sort of somehow slowly sorting itself out.
Yeah.
And a second quarter of profit would be a massive statement, that things are on the right track. Quite obviously, but we'll see.
Yeah,
Anything's possible because he's free to just get the thumbs
He'll
working.
certainly keep us posted.
Okay, with that, we have reached the finish line. Thank you, Matt.
G'day. Thank you, bye.
Thank you, Mel.
Thank
and
you, James.
Thanks to our producer, Mr. Pritchard. A refreshing change from Marsden. Marsden's not really stupid. He just has bad luck when he thinks. And thank you for listening. Please get in touch and make this a two-way conversation. In fact, we've had Roto Ihu say to us about the SsangYong Rexton, was having a look at that story on YouTube and said, great to see the man who did a voiceover for the Winton Motor Company has got another gig. Go Australia. So, well done, Crafty. And we've had a couple of comments from Hammer Rocks, who is a listener to the podcast, quite obviously, but a regular one. And thank you, he says, with regard to our blowing a gasket from last week on the electric Aston Martin DB6,
Yep.
he's firmly of the view that, quote, Aston Martin should just leave their classic cars alone. Removing the original engine is like removing someone's heart and replacing it with a mechanical one. It might work just as well and will last a lot longer, but you'd still wish you had your original heart.
Right.
So he's seeing it as a synthetic, you can't replace the real thing. So fair enough. Thank you, Hammer Rocks.
Yeah. Yep.
And he also put us straight from some comments we'd made back in episode 56 when we were talking about Acadia.
Yep.
And we were talking about what GMC actually stood for. So he told us that it's an acronym for General... I said it might be General Motors Canada.
Yeah.
Totally wrong. Obviously. He said
be.
it is a shortened name for General Motors Truck Company. So it's just the GMC out of GMTC.
Yeah.
So there you go.
And yet they think it's a premium brand.
Anyway, but so to have your say, just like Roto Ihu and Hammer Rocks, make sure that you go to CarsGuide on Facebook and Instagram and use the tag @CG Podcast, or email us at comments@carsguide.com.au. You can listen to and watch us on iTunes and YouTube. And please rate and review us. It definitely helps other people find the podcast.
Yeah, tell 'em, mate.
I hope you can join us next week. Until then, what's the difference between a Lada Samara and a golf ball? You can drive a golf ball 200 metres. I'll see myself out.
Bye.
Poor Samara.